Hello and welcome to another loop lesson. This time we're going to be talking about the while and the do while loops. As always, this is an interactive screencast, so if you want to follow along, please use the links down below. And that's enough of me, let's get coding. Hi students, in this lesson I'm going to be introducing you to two new types of loops. You can think of them as siblings, the while and the do while loops. It can be helpful to compare them to the for loop we looked at previously. Do you remember in the for loop we had three expressions? Well, the while loop takes just one of those expressions, the condition. The code in the loop will run only as long as that condition is true. We can convert our for loop into a while loop like this. We move the initialization state outside of the statement. We keep the condition expression inside the parentheses, and we move the final expression to the last line inside our loop. Now, the do while loop looks extremely similar, except we execute the block of code first inside the do, and then we check for the condition. The significant difference between the while loop and the do while loop is that in the do while loop, the first block of code will execute even if the condition is false. Now, we can use a while loop here like we used a for loop to increment or iterate through an array, but it's more commonly used to run a function. So let's go back to my household. And this time we need to wash our hands. And we need to keep washing them until they are clean. So let's write this as a while loop. Here you can see we have the function to check if the hands are clean. And that takes a parameter times washed. And if the times washed is equal to 4, then the hands are declared to be clean. We need to begin by letting times washed equals 0. Then we need our condition, and we're going to say let clean equal to false. Now we're ready to write our while loop. So we want to say while clean is not true, then run this loop, and that is check if the hands are clean. So we're going to put our check if clean function, and we're going to pass that times washed. Then we're going to console log washing hands. Now we need to increment times washed. Okay, let's run that. And we can see in the console that we have washed our hands 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Now, since you can't see germs, I want my child to wash their hands at least once before eating. So your challenge is to convert this while loop into a do while loop. Pause the screencast and then we'll go through the code together. Let's convert this while loop into a do while loop. So we'll delete it, and in its place we'll start with our do expression. And what we want to do is we want to check if the hands are clean. So we run our check if clean function and pass it the argument times washed. And then we need to console log washing hands. And finally, we need to increment times washed. Now we need to add our while expression. So our condition is that we do this while clean is false. Let's run this. Okay, let's run again. And we can see in the console we have washed our hands 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Now we said we wanted to use the do while loop because we wanted to wash our hands at least once. So let's set our clean variable to be true because my daughter swears her hands are already clean. And let's run it again. Now you can see in the console that even though the clean variable has been set to true, our hands have still been washed once. Great, our hands are clean. Now it's time to eat. Why don't you grab yourself a snack and meet me in the next scrim where you can practice using the while loop in our garden. See you there. Welcome back to your loop garden. Unfortunately, we have a problem. Some bugs have made their home here and we need to get rid of them. But don't worry, we have an eco-friendly spray at the ready. which will add a class of sprayed to the plots and remove those pesky bugs. But what I need you to do is you need to check all of the plots and you need to loop through them using a while loop and use this spray function to get rid of the bugs. So let's take a little look. Inside our HTML, we have our divs, but inside some of them, we have some bugs lurking. So here is your challenge. You need to spray the plots to remove the bugs. The first thing you need to do is create a variable to hold the number of bugs. Then you need to write your function and you're going to name it protect plants. This function will have one parameter called this plot, and that is the plot that you are going to begin your spraying at. Inside the function, you're going to use a while loop, and that while loop is going to loop for as long as there are still bugs present and there are still plots to be sprayed. Inside the while loop, you're going to call the spray function. And here's a little reminder, you'll need to stop at the final plot. Once you've done that, you are going to invoke your protect plants function with a starting plot value. Then you will have a bug-free garden. So pause the screencast now, work through this. If there are some bugs in your code as well as in your garden, don't worry, because I'll be waiting here when you get back and we can go through the code together. The first thing we need to do is to create a variable called numBugs. And that is going to hold, you guessed it, the number of bugs. Okay, let's log out that variable to check that we're on track. So we can see in the console we have 6 bugs, and if we look in our garden, we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bugs. First step done. The next thing we need to do is we need to write a function named protect plants. And that function needs to take a parameter of this plot. Now we need to use a while loop to loop through all of our plots whilst there are still bugs remaining. Here you can see we are going to loop for as long as the number of bugs is greater than 0, and I've used a ternary and to say, and also the current plot is less than the plots.length. So what do we need to do? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to call the spray function. Now we've sprayed our plot, we need to recalculate the number of bugs, because remember, the spraying action removes any bugs that are present. So let's do that. Now we've updated our number of bugs, we need to increment our plot number. Let's review our function. We have a function called protect plants, which takes a parameter this plot. Inside that function, we are calling this code here for as long as the number of bugs is greater than 0 and the current plot is less than the length of the plot's array. We are spraying the plot to remove it of bugs. We are recalculating the number of bugs and we are incrementing the plot number. I think we've got it. Let's invoke our function and see if it works. Great, we can see we have removed all of the bugs from our garden. Now you can play around with this plot number here and see how you can change which plot you start at. If we start later than when there's a bug, it'll keep going till the end because there's still a bug remaining. Let's reset that to 0. We don't want any bugs in our garden. We've put all our bugs to rest, and it might be a good time for you to take a break too before we move on to learning about some more different types of loops.